go over things to know about studying abroad, things to keep in mind, and other factors students may or may not consider that we feel are extremely vital to the experience. Now, before we get started, I would like to introduce Sarah El-Suni. She works with me very closely in terms of marketing and things like that, and she has a very special announcement to make towards the end of this.
Awesome. Thanks, Log. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah. I work with the International Services Office and more closely with Education Abroad for things like these virtual events that we're putting on throughout the week. More recently, been working more closely on a podcast, which I'll be plugging at the end of this session. So definitely stay tuned for that. But yeah, I'm really excited to share some of that material with you and get some of your feedback as well.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Sarah. So, another thing I'd like to mention is we are doing a raffle throughout this fair. So if you could please type in your ABC123 to get entered into the raffle. Um, you could get an entry with every session we have this week, and with every session you increase your chances of getting a T-shirt. So you could go ahead and type your ABC123 so we have it. That would be great. Thank you, y'all. So, looks like we could go ahead and get started. And this session will be recorded, and we'll be posting this on our website very soon. All right, so let's get started. Study Abroad 101. Again, my name is Lockley. I'm the program specialist at Education Abroad and the main student side contact. So if anything comes up, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll provide my contact information below, but it's just for generic UTSA work email. So it's just lockley@utsa.edu. So why study abroad? So there's a lot of reasons why students want to study abroad. You would hear reasons such as expanding your horizons, expanding your comfort zone, things like that. Or maybe they want to go for academic reasons, which would be, hey, there's a really great engineering program in Germany I really need to be a part of. Um, or professional reasons such as um, I want to do an internship, but I want to do it internationally because I want to get that intercultural experience because I feel like that'd be really vital, especially for students such as global affairs majors and things like that. So those are the main reasons. But what's cool about all of this is despite what specific reason you're going for, you sort of hit all three categories. Because if you're going for academic or professional growth, you'll get that personal growth. You're still exploring that new culture. You're still expanding your horizons. You're doing all of that, but you just have different goals in mind. But all of these are interconnected some way or another. Um, in terms of professional growth, you get that regardless of whether you're going for personal or academic reasons, because resumes are really just about standing out and getting that experience. And having an international experience is something you definitely want to bring up, talk about. A lot of companies have international branches, which make your international experience extremely relevant and attractive to employers. Studies do back this up. So regardless of why you want to study abroad, it's just such a great growth factor in terms of your personal, academic, and professional development. Now, what I'd like y'all to do here is to really visualize your study abroad experience. So think big picture. Where is it at? What does it look like? Where are you going? What are you learning? How are you self-actualizing? Sort of just things that you kind of picture in like your dream verse, right? And the reason I want to go real big picture about this is because throughout this presentation, we're going to fill in the small details, but I don't want y'all to lose sight of why you're studying abroad and what you're looking to see and gain and find. Because those are important. That's what got you motivated to do this in the first place. So let's move forward. So these are factors our office sort of hone in on that students should really consider before studying abroad. Um, Academics, duration, location, housing, and cost. Each of these are important, and none of these are really decisions you want to make last minute. For example, if housing ended up being something that was important to you in terms of housing style, where you wanted to stay, and you made that choice last minute, that may severely impact the overall experience, and we wouldn't really want that. So all these things are really important in their own way. They all have their own sort of niches in terms of how it impacts your experience. So it's really important to consider them before going. And we'll go over each of these one by one. So for academics, that's a pretty big one, obviously. So studying abroad, students assume, hey, if I study abroad, maybe I'll have to take an off semester. Maybe I'll be taking credits that won't impact what I have here at UTSA or go towards my degree. And that's not true at all. We work very diligently to make sure your classes do transfer back. And that's through working with your academic advisor. We have forms you fill out during the process of applying for a study abroad. And all of this is done before you leave. So we do get course approvals before you even get on a plane. And that's extremely important to us because we want to make sure you understand what you're doing abroad matters academically. So you'll know ahead of time. But it's really important to meet with your academic advisor. It's at least a few visits or a few appointments. You could cut them short if you know how to use DegreeWorks and you're already you sort of have a grasp on what courses you need to aim for. So you could see what courses you need. You could go ahead and look at a program because most programs have course listings and what they offer. And you just have to find something comparable um, because they're not going to be exact fits, right? But if you could sort of find it to where they're close enough to where your academic advisor could take those course descriptions to your department and sort of say, hey, I believe this course abroad is equivalent to our course here, then if they can make a strong case for it, the course does transfer back. So we'll definitely need you to speak to your academic advisor during this process. And quite a few more perks in terms of this as well that we'll go over in terms of funding and your academic advisor. Now, learning environment. So this is really just about the type of environment you thrive in and what you're sort of looking for in a program. And it's really about program types. So you'll see on the far left side, group flights, prearranged housing, set academic schedule. So with these, it's a lot of structure, a lot of the path is really made for you, and that's great. It's great for a lot of students who are unfamiliar with exploration, unfamiliar with going abroad. Maybe it's their first time leaving the country. These programs are typically indicative of our UTSA-led programs. They're sometimes also called faculty-led programs. The two terms are interchangeable. Um, with these programs, you are going with the faculty or staff at UTSA and other classmates and going abroad. So you could really think of it as a field trip abroad. But what's great about this opportunity is you sort of have that safety net, right? You're with other students, you're with your professor or staff who are experts and experienced in the country. So they do a lot of that navigating for you. And so you're able to just pick up what you need or pick up what you're able, but you always have that safety net to make sure you're on the right track and all that as well. UTSA's our largest programs are faculty-led programs, some of them being as big as 60 to 80 students going abroad for a summer or a full term, things like that. So it's always a good choice. And what another perk about these programs are if you're going on a faculty-led program, those are actually UTSA courses, so you actually don't have to do that petition process we mentioned earlier with your academic advisor. There's no transfer process. Those are UTSA courses, so it does save you a little headache when it comes to bouncing back and forth between offices. Now, if you go to the far right side, you'll see flying independently, arranging your own housing, choosing your own courses. So you'll see a lot of sort of on your own, kind of off the beaten path. So these are typically indicative of our exchange programs. So UTSA, we work very hard to be very globally involved. We have a lot of international agreements with other institutions. And what's great about these is it allows us to have or facilitate exchanges between the two institutions. So what you're doing here is you're paying UTSA tuition to take courses at these other institutions, and they're notably in Europe, Asia, and Latin America. What's great about these is since you're paying UTSA tuition, the cost isn't really that much different in UTSA. It's the same tuition. The only difference would be you're paying for a flight and you're paying for whatever difference is in cost of living. So it's actually very affordable. And that's not considering all of the study abroad scholarships that could be included as well outside of your regular funding. So you could end up studying abroad more affordably than you would if you just stayed domestically. So it's a great thing to look into. And the reason we sort of listed as more independent minded is because typically you're sort of on your own in terms of travel. You're just an international student abroad for that semester basically. So it really depends on how involved their international student office is. So it's a little bit different with everyone. For example, I'm part of the international student office here at UTSA, and we're actually quite involved with our international student body. We have events every month or so, or every couple weeks, and so we're quite involved, and we have a lot of and we do a lot of things with our students, but we can't say the same about every other institution. But it really just depends on them and how much you want to participate with their office. But a lot of it could be very independently minded. A lot of students like that. They don't want that structure. They don't want that decided for them. They don't want sort of planned excursions. They want, say, I'm going to another country. I have this explorative spirit, and I'm just going to do it on my own. And that's really great for students with that mindset. So the next thing is, so with all spectrums, there's a gray area. And so in the middle, we have our um, partner providers or affiliate provider programs. And these programs, they're sort of a mix and match between the two. There's no real quality between the two or that they don't have among these two. You sort of have a mixed match of everything, and they're there because they fill a niche. They've complete the catalog that UTSA has. So any gaps we have in our programming, they would cover. For example, between our faculty-led programs and our exchange programs, we don't have any programs in Australia, which our affiliate providers do cover because we do have a few that facilitate that, among other things. Another thing to bring in mind is UTSA doesn't have typically only has maybe one or two winter programs. And winter programs are really attractive to students because it takes place during that gap from December to January, where students may just be at home, not really doing much. And having these programs out there that are a week or two where you're getting academic credit, you're going abroad, exploring a new culture for that little bit of time, it's really attractive to students, especially if they're on a really tight time crunch or they have a really limited opportunity in terms of credits they could get abroad. So they facilitate winter programs, niche programs, and things like that. So don't rule those out. Those are really cool. So if you can't find anything between faculty-led or exchange programs, definitely look into third parties or affiliate providers. They do a lot of great work. So language. So a lot of students are a little bit intimidated when it comes to studying abroad, especially if they really want to go to a country, but their primary language is just English and they don't really speak anything outside of that. Um, there's a lot of countries out there that are able to facilitate English language instruction, and it's typically listed somewhere in the program, and they'll tell you which courses are English language instruction. Um, but a lot of students sort of automatically rule out certain countries, and they don't really need to do that. A lot of countries do have large international hubs, cities that are used to tourist populations, so they're able to facilitate English speakers very well. So it really just depends on looking and seeing what the program provides. So I wouldn't rule anything out. There is a lot of opportunity out there, and I think ruling countries out automatically just because you assume how they're able to facilitate you as an English speaker may compromise the opportunities you have available to you. Now, if you want to learn or improve a language, there's probably no better way than studying abroad. Um, so if you want to learn a new language, if you sort of pack your bags and move away, that's probably the best way to do it, right? So the second best way is definitely to study abroad. And I say that because if you're trying to learn a new language in a different country, you're probably taking classes to learn the language there. So you're getting that direct classroom to practical experience immediately as soon as you get out. Whereas if you were studying the new language in the States, you wouldn't have as much pressure in terms of having to continually speak the language. As soon as you walk out of the classroom, you could just speak English again. So learning a new language is very natural when going abroad. You sort of just have to pick it up to survive or just to get by. So it really puts that pressure, that immersion, and then students come out of it with such great conversational skills. They really do learn how to survive. So duration. So this was really just about considering your program links, keeping track of the dates. For example, some programs in Asia. would have their spring program start in March and end sometime mid to late June. And that really impacts how you're able to take summer one courses here back at UTSA. So you have that planned. There's going to be overlap there, and that would be a problem because you would miss classes some way. So really keep track of your program links. They're not all standardized across the world. Um, we had a student who did a really cool program in Europe, which involved them going to 9 different cities. But they already knew the program sort of overlapped with the courses back here at UTSA, so they sort of negotiated to have 8 different cities, and then they still got the full credit for the course, but it was just a little bit shorter. But it's just things to keep in mind so you could have that conversation ahead of time and accommodate your needs while still being able to go on that program if able. Now, classes. So this is one that's more of a personal threshold kind of situation where we tell students to take classes to where they're full-time, just because there's a lot of benefits of being a full-time student, such as better funding disbursements and things like that. But we try to let students know maybe they don't need to take anything past just a minimum amount of full-time, so 12 credit hours per semester. And the reason for this is you're exploring a new country, you're trying to experience a new culture, and maybe if you spend all your time studying or kind of stuck in your dorm or apartment trying to keep up with courses, that maybe you won't get that full time to explore the country. And that might defeat the purpose of studying abroad. Of course, this is a personal threshold thing, so if you are able to balance a heavy school load with while exploring the country safely, then s- we'll let you, and we won't have a problem with that at all. But it's just something to keep in mind. What's important to you, and could you really handle that? Keep in mind, there's so many other factors when it comes to being in another country. So much more adaptable you have to be, and just sort of that bit of adjustment period, right? So just something to keep in mind in terms of choosing courses. Now, location. So this may apply to students who are new to travel, and not so much students who are familiar with it. But what we're really telling you here is to sort of emulate your lifestyle a little bit if you're new to traveling. For example, if you're used to city life and things like that, but you decide, hey, I'm going to go study abroad somewhere rural, somewhere far away, a completely different culture, primary language is in English. There's a lot to adjust to, right? Huge lifestyle change all around culture and lifestyle. And that might be a lot for students. We understand humans are quite adaptable, but with that on the way to adaptability is stress. So just something to keep in mind. We do tell students to sort of emulate the lifestyle because if you're going from city to city, a similar lifestyle, you're going to get a different culture regardless. You're getting new experiences regardless. So you don't have to dump yourself into something completely new in every way. You could sort of ease yourself into experiencing new things just so it's more controlled. And that's really what it's all about, just really controlling your experience a little bit and having and being more mindful of it. Just because we do want to prevent culture shock as much as possible. Um, Culture shock is really stressful for a lot of students, and sometimes and a lot of students do experience that. We do offer mental health counseling for students while they're abroad. It comes as part of your insurance. UTSA does make sure students are taken care of, and you do have access to that. But I'd rather be preventative rather than reactionary when it comes to these things. So just something to keep in mind. Of course, this is another personal threshold slide. So if you feel like you could handle a whole new different culture and you've never explored another culture before, uh, go for it. You always have us to support you. So just reach out to us if you need anything. But just something to keep in mind. Now, housing. So there's housing options abroad are quite similar to here. You have your apartments, you have your dormitories, not so much different there. You also have homestays. So homestays are quite interesting. So these are where you're staying with a host family in the country, and you're sort of a it's sort of a window to the culture firsthand. You're experiencing family life firsthand, the foods they eat, their schedule, their lifestyle. It's a really great way to get immersed in the culture, learn the language, and see really what it's like living there. Um, Beyond sort of like the student perspective, you were stuck at a dormitory or apartment because you might be with a dormitory with a bunch of other international students, and so you're not getting the true to life experience of that country. And so homestays are really great if you maybe plan to live in that country sometime in the future. And this is a great way to intro into that. But Housing is a really important consideration because housing does so much to tell you what experience you really want. If you're doing a homestay, you're really experiencing a family life. If you're doing apartments, you're getting a different experience than you're getting in a dormitory because dormitories you're stuck with students, um, and you're getting sort of that student life there. But apartments may be more true to life there if you're choosing that. So it really depends on what overall experience you're trying to mold and trying to develop. So housing is quite important. You don't really want to make this last minute. So costs. So costs are pretty upfront. Budget sheets are available online, um, but we tell students to try to consider all costs involved, and that's best done through budgeting. So budget sheets, while they are available, a lot of them do have a personal cost section, and that ranges anywhere from they'll typically give you a range, and I've seen ranges such as $500 to $3,000 for that semester for personal costs, and that's really not usable for anyone, just because there's such a wide range there. So I tell students to sort of budget the semester before and sort of see what their cost is, their personal cost is, and what you personally spend. It really helps a lot, and it really helps to let you know, hey, these are my huge spending points. This is what I should cut back on, or if I want to maintain this, how much do I need to save if I do this abroad? So just things to keep in mind. And budgeting really does help. It's a good skill to have in your day to day, regardless. So we do recommend doing that. Now, financial aid. So financial aid is available for studying abroad, and financial aid disperses 10 days before the start of the program. Now, 10 days before the start of the program is way after a lot of payment deadlines. So that's something to keep in mind. So if you are relying on your financial aid to cover for your program deposits or fees leading up to this, I would highly recommend reaching out to whoever's facilitating the program, so the coordinator, and letting them know, hey, I'm not going to have the payment deadline until I get my financial aid. Um, so they'll know ahead of time. And for these programs, they're used to working with students all the time. It's not a problem. Typically, it's gonna be they'll hand you a form for financial aid to sign, stating that you are gonna get an award amount for so and so at this day, and then that would give them enough to give you the pass to go. And that's not a problem, but please have that conversation before the deadlines, just because it's probably weird to have it during or after. Now, financial aid is contingent on you making sure you are getting full-time credit, which is done through your academic advisor. So if you want to get financial aid, you definitely have to make sure your classes transfer back ahead of time. That's why your academic advisor is so important in this entire process. And speaking to them early on and getting those credit approvals is vital to get this. And one thing I like to tell students about financial aid and just funding in general is um, just because you're on financial aid, don't let that hinder how much you feel you could or could not study abroad. A lot of students who are on some form of financial assistance assume they can't, or just sort of give themselves a self-imposed disadvantage. And they really don't need to. There's a lot of funding opportunities out there. Financial aid being applicable is one of them. And I believe the number right now is a third of students who study abroad are on some form of financial assistance. Over the years, study abroad has worked, or education abroad as an entire field has worked so hard to be very inclusive to students of all backgrounds. And so please don't cut yourself short from all the opportunities provided by telling yourself you can't. You definitely can. It's very accessible, and we are here to help you find those opportunities. Now, the next area would be insurance. So we do make sure you're insured. It is mandatory, non-negotiable. You do have insurance when you go abroad and through UTSA, and it's not, and it's just something. It's a few check boxes during the UTSA application, so nothing too difficult. It is $20 per week of stay. So if you're staying for a month, that'll be $80. If you're staying for 2 months, that'll be 160. Um, but it is pretty inclusive. It takes care of quite a bit. Students, when they go abroad, they drink weird water and get sick. It happens. But with the insurance, it does take care of a lot of things. You get an app that tells you which clinics are in network. You get anything as far as clinical visits to emergency evac from the country, right? So it's pretty great. You sort of are completely taken care of, and What's cool about the insurance also is with the app, it tells you the going ons in the country. So any natural disasters, or it lets you know, hey, there's a protest going on here, which obviously don't join it, but there's a protest going on here, so take this alternate route. Um, so there's a lot of utility with this. So it's just UTSA does take student safety into consideration, and that this is one of the ways that manifests. So scholarships. So the main one I really do want to focus on would be the UTSA International Education Fund, or the IEF for short. So this one is for UTSA students who are going on international programs. So if you're studying abroad, you definitely apply for this. Do not leave this without an application. You are leaving money on the table. We highly recommend everyone apply for this one. And it helps so many students. It awards anywhere from $300 to $2,000, which could easily cover your flight, more. It just really depends, but it does a lot, and any amount is useful when you're sort of using it to pay for this opportunity. So please apply for this, and I'll show you where to find this a little bit later on our website as well. We do have a few others. These are nationwide scholarships, such as the Gilman Critical Language. Um, the person I tell students to reach out to would be Dr. Chapman. His information is right there, and I'll show you where to find his information on our website later on as well. But his sole reason for being here is really to help students. I mean, that's all of our reasons for being here, but his reason is really to help students get awards, fellowships, and all that. So he's really great at what he does. For example, before Dr. Chapman joined, we had maybe 3 students apply for the Gilman Scholarship every semester. But now it's anywhere from 15 to 20 students, with 30 to 50% of them getting this award. And it's not a small award. The Gilman Scholarship awards up to $5,000 for students. So that goes a long way to paying for your trip abroad, especially when you consider, um, for example, if you're doing an exchange program which is comparable to UTSA tuition between the IEF and the Gilman, that automatically could sort of just clear out all your costs. So you are studying abroad more affordably than you are domestically, if not for free, if you take advantage of all these other opportunities. So with scholarships, please begin your investigation early. When deadlines hit, then it's sort of it. They are quite strict with it, so just keep that in mind and get help. So, like I said before, that goes for us, Dr. Chapman. Please use your services and resources at UTSA. We are here to help you. We are paid for by y'all through either taxes or tuition directly. So you're paying for these resources. Please, please make use of them. We are here to help you. Um, but the Writing Center is another great resource. It'd be pretty silly if the only thing stopping you from getting that $1,000 award or so is because you didn't get your essay reviewed by someone, right? That you didn't take that quick email or visit virtually or otherwise to just get your paper looked at. Another one is recommenders. So typically these would be UTSA faculty. Get to know your professors. I think it's a good habit to get into regardless. Your professors are a great resource. Even if getting to know them just really helps in terms of feeling comfortable enough to ask them for help in class. Um, and a lot of these applications do require a recommendation or a reference. The IEF does require a reference. So if you don't know your professor, they can't really give you a reference. So please do that. It really helps. So eligibility. So programs a lot of times do have some type of prerequisite. Language proficiencies, courses. Just be sure to check those out. Keep them in mind. Um, a lot of them don't have too many, but they do exist for a lot of programs, and it's good to know beforehand. Um, so GPA. So UTSA does have a 2.5 GPA requirement to study abroad. Of course, if you are a little bit below this, we do understand that maybe you had a rough semester. Even more so now, because not everyone thrives in a virtual learning environment. I know I personally don't. So just our request is a letter from maybe a professor or college dean sort of vouching for potential, letting us know, hey, I feel like studying abroad would be a really great opportunity for the student, really great growth opportunity, and they really should study abroad, and we'll use that letter and take into consideration on overturning the requirement for your case. And like mentioned before, um, that studying abroad would, let's say hypothetically, the professor was like, studying abroad would be really help the student. Studies do show it does. Students who study abroad have been shown to have their GPA increase for the rest of their academic career. So sort of an invigoration of their studies and academics. So if you really want a GPA booster, studying abroad will probably get you motivated to continue school. It really does. I've never really had a student who came back from a study abroad and was like, oh, it was an okay experience. It was always life changing. So I think it really does show when you start looking at the studies and things like that. So deadlines. So be sure to check deadlines. Just because programs, outside programs in UTSA do have different ones. For UTSA deadlines, I label them as sort of general deadlines. And the reason for that is UTSA will not be the ones to stop you from studying abroad. We will do everything in our power to get you abroad. Um, And I say that because even though we have deadlines, let's say for summer, right, our deadline's February 15th, but we have other providers or other companies we work with deadlines in let's say April 1st, and then you submit your application March. So you're after our deadlines, but before theirs, we're not going to stop you from studying abroad. If you let me know, just contact our office. I'll go ahead and expand your deadline on our end to match the deadline of our of whoever you're working with, so it matches up and you're able to submit the application. That's not a problem for us. The reason we have these deadlines are really for your benefit, because if you notice, each of these deadlines take place anywhere from 4 to 6 months before the start of the program. And the reason for this is if you have all this time left, you're able to prep better, you're able to get all your affairs in order, you're able to budget properly, and sort of apply for other scholarships or other funding opportunities during this time. Because if you wait a little too long after this, you start missing out on all those opportunities and it really hurts you. So this really just gives you time to like, okay, I'm done with the application. What else do I need to do to really solidify my experience or reinforce my experience? So a story I like to tell students is um, a year ago, a couple years ago, I had a student who wanted to study abroad for the summer, and they didn't reach out to me about how much they wanted to study abroad until April. They were extremely motivated to study abroad, but our deadlines were February 15th, and our partners' deadlines were in March. Um, but like I said, we're not going to be the ones to stop you from studying abroad. So I reached out to the partner and asked them, hey, I have a student who really wants to study abroad. They're extremely motivated. Is there any way we can get them into the program? Fortunately, they were processing their last batch of applications. So they said, sure, of course, as long as the student submits everything by the end of the week. Um, so I told the student, and they were extremely thrilled. So I followed up with them a few days later, and it turns out they had made no progress on their application. And the reason for that was it was already April, and by this point, they already missed every scholarship deadline. So that was just really unfortunate. The student was pretty upset about that because they were motivated to go. The motivation was there. It's just the timing was off. So it's really unfortunate. So I really tell students, hey, if you want to study abroad, please do it early. I tell students, students always ask me if they talk to me about studying abroad a year and a half in advance, hey, am I too early? And I'm like, you could never really be too early when it comes to planning your study abroad. It's such a big opportunity. So, researching programs. So advising hours, since everything's virtual, it is by appointment only, and I'll show you where to find that. But those are the hours typically for when we have virtual appointments. But if things, let's say the office does, or the world sort of settles down and we're back in the office, um, you could reach out. We're in the main building by the garage, so if you want to stop by to talk to us real quick, feel free. I take walk-ins. I'm not really too pretentious about it. I don't have a problem with talking to students wherever you run into me in the hallway or JPO and you recognize me, I'll talk to you about studying abroad if you'd like. Um, Appointments are important because they guarantee my time. Um, if I'm at another meeting or somewhere else, obviously, if you walk in, I'm unable to help you. But if, let's say, since we're right by the garage or right by the main building, you're getting out of class or going to your car and you want to stop by real quick because you have a quick question or you want to check, hey, how's my application going? And you just want me to check on it real quick, I'm more than happy to. That's if we're back in the office anytime soon. So now I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing now. and I'm gonna go ahead and find the website so we could walk through this together, just real quick. And I will take questions at the end of this as well, because I know we got a couple already. So if y'all have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat, to me privately or just in the chat overall, and we'll go ahead and answer that towards the end. I just want to make sure we have time to go through all of these, or sort of everything else. So we should be seeing, let's see. Yeah, okay. So this is the main Education Abroad website where you get information on our programs. There's a lot of resources here. You can sort of just walk through our virtual office hours, things like that, virtual opportunities, which are really great right now. And we'll talk a little bit more about pandemic and sort of the pandemic circumstances as well towards the end. So, funding. Let's go here first. I feel like this is a pretty important one. So, with study abroad funding, you get information about financial aid here. If you go here, you'll find one-stop enrollment, their information. They have a study abroad page as well. They also have a study abroad financial aid request form, which you would need to fill out. Scrolling a little bit lower, you'll see the International Education Fund. So this was the IEF I mentioned earlier, anywhere from 300, 2,500. Has pretty much all the basic information here, but if you click apply here, it will take you to our application portal. All you got to do is log in, register ABC123, and just apply now, and just choose the term you're going for. So pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy. It's a pretty intuitive system. If you have issues with it, just let me know. And you scroll lower, you'll find study abroad scholarships. So these are those external scholarships I talked to you about that Dr. Chapman would be able to help you with. His information's right there if you ever need to reach out to him, but he's actually doing a presentation later this week as well. Excuse me. He's doing a presentation later this week as well. So be sure to go for that, but he's going to do an overall study abroad scholarship presentation, which I think would be great. It's on Rowdy Link, so be sure to look for it. But for the Gilman Scholarship, we have it here, among other things. If you click any of these links, it does take you to the page. But let's go ahead and do like a quick role play, right? So let's say I'm I'm a student who wants to go to Japan. I'm a Pell Grant recipient, and I'm studying the language. So the Gilman scholarships for Pell Grant recipients. So I would apply for this one. Critical language scholarship. Let's go ahead and look and see if Japanese is covered. It is, along with many other languages. So if you're interested in any of these, this is a great scholarship to look into. Freeman Asia. So Japan happens to be in Asia, so that's a pretty good one. And bridging study abroad in Japan bridging scholarship, and that's pretty self-explanatory why I'd apply for this one if I was going to Japan, right? So these would be four I would apply to for sure, and among other things, maybe I could apply for others, which is why I would ask Dr. Chapman for more insight and things like that. But this is a great way to start, and Dr. Chapman may have resources or knowledge on any other new and emerging scholarships as well, so be sure to ask. So that covers funding side. So let's go ahead and head to, let's see, oh, get started. So you go to get started and get started again. These are the steps when it comes to studying abroad. You follow these rough steps, you sort of hit most of the checkboxes for studying abroad. Not every, not necessarily every application will be the same, but more or less each of these, as long as you do each of these, you're most of the way there. And if you want to set up an appointment with us, go ahead and there's a schedule an appointment button here, which just takes you to my Outlook, and you can find my calendar. So you can schedule an appointment. So pretty easy. Be sure to do that for yourself, and just make sure you're following the guides. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. So next, oh, we also have a lot of resources available to you as well. Things we sort of wrote down, questions students had in the past that we figured we should share here as well, and things like that. We do have an international travel in 50 regions page, and I'll go more about that towards the end. But for now, let's go to find a program. So let's go to search all programs. But if you want to learn about the program types real quick, you could just read through here and it will sort of explain sort of what I did at the beginning. but the information's here as well. But if you go to search all programs, it'll take you to a simple search. Um, so you don't need the advanced search. I don't think anyone does. But simple search is really all you need. You can search by term, region, country, city. If you're using keywords, you could use keywords for majors typically. So if you're studying math, just look for math or things like that. Pretty easy. And usually most programs do list pretty upfront what they're having students do. So economics, engineering, things like that. But for the case of this example, we're just gonna go ahead and press search, which will pull up everything. So the programs at the top of the list would be, since they're alphabetical order, would be abroad UTSA. And then you'll see a little bit after that what type of program it is. So you'll see exchange. If you scroll down, you will see our faculty led. So you'll notice there's only one right now, just because faculty aren't doing any programs right now. And the faculty for this one just has hers on to sort of advertise future programs. But you sort of know ahead of time what they are. But if they say abroad UTSA, you just open them up and let's see, as soon as this loads, and you just press apply now. Pretty easy. If it's an abroad UTSA application, it's just one application through us. And then we'll follow up with you after the deadlines and things like that to sort of get the rest of your information that we need. Now, once you scroll a little bit lower, you start seeing these weird abbreviations like AIFS and API. These would be our partner providers, third-party providers, other affiliates that we work with. So these are a little bit different. These are those third-party companies I was talking about, and that I said fill in the gaps when we're programming. So you'll notice that once the broad UTSA applications end maybe about 5 to 10% down the scroll bar. So we literally have hundreds, if not thousands, of programs out there. And that's not even all the ones that exist. These are just the ones we list. So you find a program that isn't on our list, just reach out to me that you're really interested in, reach out to me, and we could definitely look into getting you in that program as well. This just we feel like we covered quite a bit here, but there's a lot. So when I tell students there's a perfect program out there for you, I'm not really exaggerating. There's something out there for you. Um, and so I tell students to be picky. You definitely could. If you want a program to study a specific thing in London, look for it. It's there. So these programs are a little bit different. If you click on any one of these, you have to apply now just for our sake, so we understand you're studying abroad and we're able to do things on our end, such as making sure classes transfer back, making sure you're getting funding, and making sure we maintain your UTSA student status abroad. But you also have to apply through the partner because they're the ones who are facilitating the travel. So we work together, but you need to apply. So you need to apply through both, and it's really vital you do so. So they have apply now button. But when I tell students to go on these other provider websites, the main thing I tell them to look for is really courses. Courses are important because this is ultimately what you'll be taking back to your academic advisor. These are the course descriptions you'll be taking back with their course numbers at the university, so they know um, what you're studying abroad and how and if the department will take this back as UTSA credit. So this is really what you're looking for. So I would look for when I'm looking for a program that sounds interesting. Obviously, you read the title and like, oh, that's eye catching. So I'm gonna go for that one, and then you look at their course listings and see if they have anything that sort of fits your degree plan. So be sure to do that. Um, and that's probably the first thing I tell students to look for. Then afterwards, if classes fit, then you sort of see if everything else fits, such as academics, courses, excursions. If you like travel, maybe you want programs with no travel because you'll figure out your own travel plans. Or if you really don't know anything about the country and you don't know how to make your own plans, you sort of like that included travel, right? So let's scroll down through a couple others. I'm just picking these at random. There's no way I could definitely like memorize how to do the same specific programs. The reason I'm just choosing a bunch of random ones, let's see, I think this one is IS, so ISA would be different. So the reason I do a lot of different ones is because since they're different companies, their websites are inherently different, right? But it's sort of like one of those situations where it's different but same. So if you click here, you'll see you'll see academics immediately at the top. and then you'll see what they offer, contact hours, and you click one of these courses, it'll dig you a little bit deeper, so you'll know what they offer and what the course entails. So it's pretty easy. Then what's included, funding support, things like that. Um, so that was one. And if you go to another, this is a different company, I believe. Immediately you'll find courses. So completely different website, but everything's sort of the same. Just because their UI is made to be very easy for students to navigate, because if it wasn't, it was confusing, then it would be a problem. But they're very intuitive, and it tells you excursions immediately, so it's all sort of the same. You could find budget, sample calendar as well. So a lot of handy resources. These providers do work very hard to give students like a sort of a full um, hands-on experience, and they're able to really help students walk through and navigate the entire process on their end. So just things to look for. And we just do one more just to sort of drive the point home. Academics, easy. Sort of look through courses listed here. So a lot of students are kind of worried, what do I bring to my advisor? It's pretty simple to find. And if you're still having trouble with this, feel free to reach out. Um, maybe I'm biased in saying it's easy because I deal with this all the time, but I'll be happy to help you as well. But you can definitely find a lot of information for these websites. Just remember to apply for both. If you apply through us but not through them, you'll look pretty weird showing up at the airport, right? So definitely apply for both. Okay, now that covers sort of everything in terms of applications. Let's go back to our website real quick, and we'll go over sort of the state of international travel now, with us being in the middle of a pandemic. So with the way things are, we have these applications called restricted region travel requests, and these are for students or anyone who wants to go to a region that we deem a little bit more risky than others, and you just need to get approval for those things. So, um, a few countries do have these sort of risk flags, but because of the current state of the world, every country has the risk flag now, when before it was only a minority of countries. So because of that, every student needs to fill this out. So you go to restricted region request forms, you go here, you'll find individual student form, and this would be the one you have to fill out. Sort of explains your travel, things like that. We do need this, and we do need to approve this 30 days, 60 to 30 days before you travel. Um, it is extremely important you get this filled out. And at the end on page 8, the rest is just travel information and things like that. Usually, if you're going through another company, they'll have that information provided for you. But you do need signatures from your chair and dean. Um, but we always tell students, because we're unsure of the state of the world and how things are going, we are optimistic about future travel. So I did have someone ask me if there'll be study abroad opportunities in the summer. We're not quite sure. Um, what I tell students usually is the closer it is to the current term, the more unlikely. And right now, I would say summer is more unlikely than not. And I'm a little bit more optimistic for fall, and I'm pretty optimistic for spring. And that's pretty much how it goes. As things go on further, things get better. More people get vaccinated. We learn a little bit more about the virus, and we learn how to better mitigate and handle it. And with that, travel starts opening up over time. So with that said, before we are allowing blanket approvals, and until sort of every region is sort of deemed back to its non-risk state, we do tell students to take precautions, and these are precautions in terms of funding, especially, and courses. So if you're planning to study abroad, please make sure you're you're not making too many financial commitments. Students like to buy flights ahead of time. Try not to do that right now with the current state of things, just because if we are unable to approve travel, you may be stuck with a flight ticket. Among other things, um, look into program deposits, and if you could push those back, or maybe if you could defer them to another semester, you could go. Then maybe that would be a good condition to have. And we do tell students to register for UTSA courses for the same um, term they are traveling. And the reason for that is so if you are able to study abroad, um, then we tell students to um, you could just drop your UTSA courses, but if you can't study abroad, then um, you have UTSA courses to back you up. So just things to keep in mind. And for now, I could go ahead and take questions for everyone. And I'm gonna go ahead and set up a poll real quick. Uh, but if anyone has questions in the chat, please feel free. And after the question and poll, I'll pass it on to Sarah.
Thanks, Locke.
I have a question real quick. I'm so sorry, Sarah.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
It sounds like a silly question to me, but what about passports,
Um,
especially when you go out into international?
Passports, we currently don't provide passport assistance for students. We are working on getting a passport office in-house, but for now it would mostly be the regular channels, and we could provide resources in terms of website links on how to apply for a US passport. Was that what your
Oh,
question
okay.
was?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Do we have any other questions? Well, in that case, I think Sarah, you want to chime in and talk about the podcast a bit?
Sure. Thanks for that presentation, also, Locke. That was great. So I just wanted to hop on and go ahead and share some progress updates with this exciting podcast that we've been working on. So just a little bit of background about myself. I was a UTSA student, and I did have the opportunity to travel abroad with education abroad. I was able to go to China on a 2-week immersion as a student, and there we went and toured universities. I got to learn more about the Chinese economy and business culture because it closely aligned with my major. And I was also able to volunteer in Puerto Rico as a student. And after graduation, I was so inspired by the study abroad experiences that I had that I decided to go live in Barcelona for a month to participate in a business consulting fellowship. And, I really just share these because just studying abroad for me really built the momentum for me to even want to work abroad after graduation and for me to want to pursue higher education overseas as well. And I really feel that it opened up doors that really wouldn't have been available to me otherwise had I not taken the initiative to just seek out study abroad information as a student. So you all are in the right place. And I think that, I'm obviously like a big advocate for starting early and using study abroad as a tool to gain clarity on what our long-term aspirations and goals are. So, just during my time working as a staff member, I've come across so many incredible stories from students that have also gone abroad. And as a team, we decided we really want to document and capture these stories to share more publicly with everyone. And that's why we created the Study Abroad Experience podcast. So you all actually helped me pick that name. We took polls on Instagram to kind of gauge what everybody was feeling and get an idea of what our audience would like to see. So that's also part of the reason we'd like to hear your feedback today with this poll. And then with 2 more open-ended questions that I'll ask after this. But we'd definitely like to know, what kind of guests you would like to listen to on the show. Of course, we want to focus on students, but it would be great to maybe hear perspectives of incoming students that have come abroad or that have come from other partner universities from overseas to study here. Also, staff and faculty that have really insightful things to share too, if that's a preference. I see here, okay, it's definitely mostly students and it's a fair amount of the other options, so that's good to see. Um, and now I just have 2 more follow-up questions for you. Is what kind of specific subjects would you like to hear openly discussed on the podcast? Like, feel free to write that in the chat or unmute yourself and speak as well. But while people might be answering that, I'm going to go ahead and link you all to our first episode that has actually just been launched today. And this one features a study abroad alumni whose name is Montana Meeker. Montana has an incredible story, so I definitely recommend you all check this out. I'll link it once this poll is gone. But yeah, this episode in particular focuses on how study abroad can change your life and advice for funding your programs, because Montana in particular was really good at being garnering support from departments on campus and fundraising a lot towards her study abroad program. So she definitely has some good feedback here that you can check out in the links I just shared in the chat. So definitely go show that some love. We will also be taking more feedback like on Instagram, where you can follow us too at UTSA Study Abroad, just because we definitely want to, meet your expectations. Okay. Contemporary art, public health housing. Okay. Just reading some of this feedback. Thank you. That's really good to hear. But yeah, that's my little plug that I wanted to make. I also want to encourage everyone to go ahead and register for other sessions that we'll be having throughout the week. So I'm linking that as well. That's a link to the Rowdy link where you'll be able to see the remaining 7 sessions that'll be held up until Friday.
All right, thank you, Sarah. And at this time, we are still taking questions, so feel free to ask in the chat or just unmute your mic, and feel free to keep answering the questions Sarah asked before, being what specific topics do you want to hear openly discussed in the podcast, or what kind of guests or stories would you like to hear featured in the podcast as well. So pretty much anything you want to hear, we'll do our best to put an episode about it moving forward, or we'll put it online. It really helps us a lot for us to know what to target and what to aim towards.
Log, I have a question.
Yeah, of course.
So, let's say like we go to different, like we go to study abroad program, like the different country. How are the classes over there like mainly in English, or are they like a mix in between the language of the country, or like how typically you know how they are?
Yeah, so 100% depends on the program you choose. So some programs are sort of focused on the language of the country, whilst the majority of the ones students go for do have English language instruction or are based on English language instruction. It really depends on sort of your goals. If you're going to learn the language or be immersed in the culture, you'll end up in courses which are primarily the home language of that country. So, or the language of that country. So it just really depends on what you pick. So there's no majority or anything in particular, but well, actually there is. The majority of classes abroad would be in English language instruction, but you definitely find courses that aren't. But
Oh,
they typically assign that to the courses or let you know before you choose them.
oh, so it's just dependent on programs, right? So,
100%.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. And typically, if it's a course that requires language proficiency, so let's say you're taking courses in Mexico or something, you're not going to randomly show up in class and you only speak English, and you're just like, oh darn, I'm in a class and everyone only speaks Spanish and I can't understand or get by at all. They'll typically, if it's primarily not English, they'll have you take a language proficiency test, so you'll sort of know there's an expectation of the language before going into the program.
All right, gotcha. Thank you.
Not a problem. Any other questions? And we could definitely start winding it down as well. If we do appreciate y'all coming here. It means a lot to us to get such great student participation and feedback. If something else ever comes up where you want to ask us anything, feel free to, or reach out to me. I'm gonna type my email in the chat. And just go ahead and share anything. You could share maybe podcast ideas as well. We're always receptive to those. Just anything you want to hear, feel free to help us out. But we're really here to help y'all. So thanks for coming. We really do appreciate it. And we hope y'all have a wonderful day that we'll see you at the other events.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.